Welcome everyone to Moreland University's Moreland Meets. Today we're going to have the fabulous opportunity to come together with experts from Modern Classrooms Project to discuss best practices for creating instructional videos. And I am just thrilled to welcome Emily and Rob from Modern Classrooms to be with us today. I'm thrilled to welcome Christina, one of our fabulous faculty members at Moreland University, and I'm also happy to introduce myself. My name is Joey, and I am the Professional Development Officer at Moreland. Just so honored to have the opportunity to organize and facilitate the conversation today. Before we get started, I would like to briefly welcome you to Moreland University, where our mission is teaching teachers around the world to be resourceful problem solvers and tech-savvy educators through an online collaborative activity-based learning system designed for tomorrow's students in a dynamic and a diverse world. We will be using the chat space to discuss for those of you who are here live. So I will put information in the chat space, including our mission, and I encourage you to use that to ask questions. In addition, for those of you who are watching the recording, note that all of this information will be available in the description box and on our website at moreland.edu, moreland.edu. We at Moreland University have three particular programs, which we have as a foundation for the work that we do. We have our Teach Now Teacher Preparation Certificate Program, an entirely online 9-month teacher preparation program that does lead to teacher certification in a state in the United States. And we are growing and expanding the states where we can certify teachers and are thrilled to offer that to teachers around the world, wherever they may be. We also have master's degrees in education that we offer in conjunction with our Teach Now program, including focuses in early childhood, special ed, teaching multilingual learners, globalization, educational technology, and educational research, in addition to our master's in educational leadership, a standalone program. And finally, last but not least, we have our professional development, a part of which you are today. We offer monthly no-cost courses to teachers around the world as our sort of commitment to teachers during this tumultuous time in education, providing expert information, best practice in hybrid education. And as you will see today, we bring together our faculty and other experts in the field of education to provide the absolute best programming to help teachers provide excellent teaching and learning opportunities, as well as to promote student success wherever learning may take place. Today, we come together to discuss instructional videos. What we know is that these videos offer dynamic audiovisual input that may promote student understanding, connect theory to real life, and offer inclusive learning opportunities to our students with disabilities and those who may have language barriers. Teachers can even flip their classroom by front-loading the content through engaging videos that students review in preparation for the learning laboratory that takes place in the classroom, where collaboration, student-driven activities, and other sort of student-centered activities are available for our learners to really dig into the learning. We're thrilled to collaborate with the Modern Classrooms Project to offer this roundtable discussion on developing meaningful and engaging instructional videos. Today, we're going to learn some concrete strategies and best practices to create and publish our very own videos in preparation for a no-cost course 1 week from today, where teachers who enroll will be empowered and enabled to create their very own videos or infographics. So this is a conversation you will not want to miss as you prepare to implement and use videos in your classroom. I'd like to now invite my guests from the Modern Classrooms Projects to introduce themselves. And I will begin with my colleague, my friend, my longtime friend, actually, Rob. Rob Barnett is the president and co-founder of the Modern Classrooms Project. He is dedicated to creating and offering excellent professional development and has taught math, computer science, entrepreneurship, and law at the high school and college levels in Washington, D.C. and Switzerland. Rob, would you like to introduce yourself and speak a little bit about the Modern Classrooms Project before we dive into this conversation?
Yes, thank you. And we go way back. In fact, Joey and I were in the same teacher training cohort in DC Teaching Fellows in the same school over the summer, long time ago. So it's a pleasure to find ourselves here. Yeah, my name is Rob. I'm the president and co-founder of Modern Classrooms Project. 4 years ago, I was a high school math teacher. Modern Classrooms Project didn't exist. I was struggling mightily to meet all of my students' needs. I was in a classroom facing students who were ahead and bored, behind and lost. Some weren't there at all, and I really didn't know how to teach all of them. I also was not, I don't consider myself all that compelling as a lecturer, and I don't have much of an appetite for strict classroom management. And so I just wasn't really happy with the way I was teaching. So I started teaching a different way, and the foundation of that was really instructional videos. So and now here we are. We have the Modern Classrooms Project, and I'm on the webinar and hoping to share some interesting tips with you. So thank you, Joey. Thanks to all of you for being here. I'm excited for the opportunity to talk.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rob. Rob and I have been dedicated to student achievement for a long time, and we put our money where our mouths are, simply because we dedicated ourselves to engaging in some really intensive training in DC public schools to make a difference, and then have found ourselves in a similar space now many years later. So I'm glad to be here with you. Emily Dia is also from Modern Classrooms. She is passionate about culturally responsive practice, standards-based grading, and dynamic curriculum design, and is the partnerships manager for the Modern Classrooms project. She supports educators and schools in reimagining instruction. She's a middle school English teacher and has served as an instructional coach in North Carolina for 20 years. So Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Emily. It's good to be here with you. I'm down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I actually found the model on a podcast in my 18th year of teaching, and I was very underwater at the time during COVID, started at the very beginning of COVID, and I just was so overwhelmed and feeling so helpless. And I listened to an episode about instructional videos and thought, oh, this is hope. This is hope that I need for me and my kids right now. And then I went through the training the next summer, and I started implementing the model for about 2 years of my classroom. And it was so transformative for me as an instructor, and my wellness and my students' wellness, and the incredible formative data that the model generates. It really allowed me to differentiate, I think, for the first time in over 15 years of teaching. Anyway, so it's so powerful. That's what brings me here full time, and to get more teachers empowered and inspired. And I'm glad to be here to share any tips and wisdom with y'all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Emily. And we couldn't get away without a y'all. So I'm glad that you're here and bringing the South with you. I'd like to also introduce my friend and colleague, Christina, who is a fellow Georgian. I'm also from Georgia. Christina is a native Georgian who's lived and taught in numerous countries around the world. She currently is completing a doctorate in educational psychology. I happen to know that her research focus is fascinating, and you should definitely follow Christina's journey as she works with the professional development here at Moreland to find out about the work that she's doing to determine well, I'll let her talk about her research in a moment, but she is focused on emotional intelligence and is part of the faculty of Moreland University's Teach Now program. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you so much, Joey. So yeah, I am actually certified as a middle school and high school science teacher. I was teaching all the way up until the COVID time hit, and I realized that science is not designed in or the way I was teaching science was not designed in the online classroom. So it was quite interesting to be in the parent-teacher conferences and be told halfway through, oh, by the way, we're not coming back on Monday, but you're still going to start teaching on Tuesday. And throwing me completely for a loop that I spent, I would probably say maybe 2 hours of sleeping from that Thursday to that Tuesday, trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do in science. Like, what do you do? I'm very much of a hands-on teacher. We do labs all the time. What am I going to do with my kids now that are at home that have no resources? Because currently I'm in New Orleans and I was teaching at an underprivileged school. My kids didn't always have food to eat. So there's no way I was going to tell them to go out and buy materials. So I was able to design my lessons remotely through videos and things like this, and I'd love to share some ideas with you guys. But like Joey was saying, I am super passionate. My son is a third cultural kid, meaning that he's half Egyptian, half American, but was raised in neither one of our cultures. And so he has like a culture of his own that's a blend between everything. And so my focus is really looking at how emotional intelligence is developed among the third cultural kids and compared it to monocultural kids, because I think that's what a lot of our kids are going to be, even when they're in virtual schools around the world, is they're getting exposed to another culture and they're being raised differently than what their parents were. And I think that's really important that we understand their needs.
Well, thank you, Christina, for being with us and for sharing a little bit about your research and how it is informed by your lived experience and that of your son. As we dive into our discussion, I will just let you know, my name is Joey. I have worked as a Spanish and English as a second language teacher before moving into teacher development and higher education. I've worked as an instructional coach, a teacher preparation curriculum designer, and a faculty member at Moreland, where I now serve as the professional development officer. So I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be with you. Our conversation will take place over the course of 3 rounds of discussion, which will each last more or less 12 to 15 minutes. And as we are able to connect each question to the next, we will try and provide an all-encompassing conversation on ways that we can integrate instructional videos into the classroom. I will be a participant as well as a facilitator today, so we will have 4 of us guiding this conversation. We invite the participants with us to use the chat space to pose questions and discuss. At the end, we will have an optional talk back as people are interested. And those of you who are watching the recording, which I know will be many, I hope that you'll leave your questions and comments in the comment section, and we will respond to those. Panelists, are you ready? Christina, Emily, and Rob, are you all ready to get started? All right, viewers, those of you who are with us, are you ready? And if you have your camera on, you give me a thumbs up. And if not, you can use the chat space and let me know, or you can use an emoji. All right, I see you all. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and dive right into round 1. This, I think, is one of the most important questions, which is, what are some of the most important considerations and best practices for making effective instructional videos? Again, what are these considerations we need to make as we are determining ways that we would like to create instructional videos for our classroom? And I'd like to ask Emily, if Emily would begin for us, if you wouldn't mind.
Surely. I think the number one best practice for me, and I'm speaking from experience as someone whose first instructional video took like 3 hours to make, is planning. I think planning in the instructional video is really important. So whether that's you writing it out on a piece of paper or you building a slide deck that you're going to record on top of, but really being clear in your head about the purpose of your instructional video, the objective that's going to be measured at the end of the video, and then thinking about how you're going to engage students throughout the watching of the video. All of those pieces are really important to consider before you even start making it. So I would say planning is my number one pro tip on the instructional video creation best practices.
Absolutely. I was speaking with a faculty member from Moreland who will be teaching one of our professional developments next week. And she creates these highly engaging TikTok videos that are getting thousands of views, and they're only 30 seconds. But she says, you know, these 30-second videos take me a long time to create. And the way that she's able to do that well is by planning. Rob, what would you add about how we can most effectively create our own instructional videos?
Well, Emily had an excellent answer. I think the answer for me is just go for it. I think there's a lot of hesitancy around doing this. And, you know, I think it's great that a Moreland faculty member is spending hours making great TikTok videos. We can't all be that, that creative and at that level of quality. And I think sometimes you can go on YouTube and you see these incredible videos and you think, you know, who am I to make an instructional video? I don't know how to do that. We're making a video right now. We have Zoom recording, and this is a video. And so I think you just have to try it and be okay with the fact that it won't be perfect. We talk about sometimes at Modern Classrooms a one-take rule, meaning do it, finish it, send it to your students, and don't worry. And like you will get better over time. And if you were standing at the board explaining, you would make mistakes and you'd be nervous and you know, all of that. So I think you just have to do it.
That one take rule, that is fabulous, Rob. I think if anybody is taking note, write that one down, because planning and then saying, you know what, this is the take, is actually the best way to go about creating videos in a defined time frame. Simply because if you tell yourself, even if I stutter, even if I mess up, this is my only take, then you will simplify the process and you'll be able to embrace sort of the imperfection of it all, knowing that it's okay to stumble, to have to restate something, to laugh, to create a video that is authentic, not so highly overproduced. Not all of us can go into a meeting and speak fluently as though we're presenting the whole time that we're speaking. Some of us need to just be ourselves, and that may be that we're sort of repeating words, using like, but as we watch the videos and over time, we get better and better. But don't do that by sort of spending hours overproducing one single video. Christina, what are your thoughts on this?
I love the one take thing. However, that's not my way of doing it. I don't do a million run throughs, but I do like doing one or two run throughs so I know exactly how long my video is going to be, because studies have definitely shown that kids start losing, even adults start losing focus after about 6 minutes, and they really lose focus after 9. And so I personally like running through my slides, running through what I want to say and timing myself, because I do like talking and I do like going off on the long end and realizing that I'm looking down, I'm like, oh, so that's 15 minutes. Okay, that's not going to work. And realizing where I need to cut it off and then where I can start another video. Because for me, I always sent my students 3, maybe 4 videos a day, but they would be between 5 to maybe 7 minutes long at a time. So I really chunked out the material, but I could only do that once I timed myself and saw where should I stop right here? Where is an appropriate time to like call it a break and let them practice? So I love the one take, but for someone that loves talking, that, you know, it turns into a novel for me.
Right. Know thyself, I think is the statement there. If you know you're going to say a lot, and be ready to say less. I think to sort of summarize and also to add my own perspective is that effective content videos for instruction are short, sweet, and to the point. We need not to beat around the bush. We need to not do all sorts of effects and fancy things. If we're going to use slides, make them simple, little text, lots of images. And I like the rule for elementary school students that the student's age is more or less how many minutes they can stay with you. After elementary school, when they get to be 9, 10, 11, 12, that rule doesn't apply, because after about 9 minutes, nobody cares anymore. And that sounds really, really harsh, but it's true. After 9 minutes, nobody is going to be with you. They're going to be doing something else. And in fact, I would probably say 7 or 6, or in the world of social media, 1. But as we are thinking about creating videos for elementary school students, remember, students' age more or less aligns to how many minutes they can be with you for a video or an activity. I'd love to also talk about the content as we're thinking about creating instructional videos. What are some considerations and best practices around sort of organizing the content that you're presenting? And I'll open this up for Emily, Rob, or Christina, not only about the design, but what we're saying and how we're saying it.
For me, the first thing that I do, I think it's really important that I set the stage for the students. I welcome them, even though obviously they're not there to engage me, but I do let them know that I'm happy that they're back, and I try to really set the environment around. And then I go through the one objective that video is going to cover. I don't do more than one objective because, again, we're going to make it short and sweet. And I use those visual aids, and I also use it where I'm writing on the board at the same time. So if I'm doing a see, think, wonder, and I want them to give me 1 see, 1 think, 1 wonder, I'm going to make sure I write that number on the board for them to visually see that as well. I think that not only helps our ELL students, our students with special needs, it helps me. So I remember what I've said to them. I can make sure I've covered it. And then I I upload all my videos to Edpuzzle personally, because then I can add in differentiated questions in my own videos for them. So my ELL student, I'll give them multiple choice questions to make sure that they understood what we were doing. For my on-level or my advanced students, maybe open-ended, where I'm asking them questions. Well, where did you see this in your life before? And I'm pushing them outside where they have to engage with me in an asynchronous kind of way. And it gives me a way to check in with them as well.
Emily or Rob?
Yeah, I would just echo the checks for understanding, whether it's Edpuzzle or PlayPosit or Screencastify. Like, there's so many tools out there right now for educators to make the video engaging and to interrupt and really capitalize on that attention and really boost that attention and engagement throughout their watching of it. Yes, totally. I think also for me, I echo Christina on the one teaching point, that when I shifted to instructional videos, I realized how many teaching points I was putting in my lessons. And it was really humbling to try to like reimagine and refocus. Of course, children are confused if they have 4 or 5 teaching points they're trying to keep in their head at one time. So the instructional video really invites just a lovely level of precision for you as an educator to bring to your students. And then therefore a very clear measure of mastery proficiency around that skill that you can offer to them at the end of that video, and in their practice after the video, et cetera, and their mastery check or expertise check or whatever you might want to call it. I would say too, for me, in terms of the content, like creation wise, just a natural speaking voice, because faster, the research suggests, is actually better. The beauty of instructional videos is that kids can pause, they can rewind, they can replay. You can embed subtitles to support language learners. They can slow it down, they can speed it up. Like, there's so many ways they can adapt you as their teacher in that way to meet their needs using the audio modification. So I would just say, like, don't overthink just talk like you normally do, and don't overthink that part.
One thing that I think, I mean, I can't overstate what Christina and him have said about just keeping it focused on one thing, which is hard. One temptation I have to fight sometimes is overloading even a video covering one thing with a lot of text. Often, I want to like explain it, and I think it's confusing to students to read something while listening, and so even though I want to write out a great explanation, I have to fight that. And also to realize sometimes with the video, less is more. I think if I'm teaching a math lesson, oftentimes I don't want to show one example. I want to show 2 examples, 3 examples, so everyone really gets it. I think in a video, sometimes better to show one simple example. Students can rewatch it. They're not going to be bored. And then they can ask me if they have questions. They can, they can look at another video. They can practice. And so I think as teachers, we want students to understand things so much that we want to just stuff the video with, a long explanation, text, a lot of examples. It's okay to, to be more concise and leave a little bit of uncertainty. That's part of learning, is for the student to resolve that on their own versus just getting every single last point from the video.
I would add on to that, Rob, like, there's that rule of thumb of like, are you going to teach content or are you going to teach a skill? And like either or, and an instructional video is a pretty good practice to keep in your back pocket. Not both. Sometimes it's really hard to do both for kids and for us. So content or skill.
Right. Short, sweet, and to the point. Well, we've sort of been touching on the second question in a roundabout way, and I think it makes sense to transition now to this round 2, which has to do with engagement and interaction. How can teachers make educational videos that are interactive and promote student engagement, both in person and in virtual settings? We've talked about some integration of apps, in particular, Edpuzzle is my particular favorite, simply because you can take a video that you find online from YouTube or Vimeo, or a video that you create, and you can integrate almost within seconds very simple checks for understanding, open-ended questions, multiple choice questions, and all sorts of opportunities for students to engage with that video by themselves. So when we're thinking about students in a hybrid setting, when they're not able to be with anyone but themselves for that particular class, I look at videos, video editing tools like VoiceThread or Edpuzzle as ways that students can have an asynchronous interactive experience that requires them to demonstrate understanding and show interaction, but doesn't require them to be around other students. And this is particularly helpful when we are toggling between online and in-person learning due to COVID-19. Hopefully we are nearing the end of that, but who knows? We need to be ready to pivot. And I think tools that, and Flipgrid is another one, that allow students to interact and engage virtually are extremely powerful. But I wonder, Christina, how have you used Edpuzzle and other apps to create more engaging educational video experiences for your learners?
So, like I said, I use Edpuzzle for the differentiation, but I wanted to point out one of the reasons why I use Edpuzzle. I teach middle schoolers and high schoolers. They've learned at this age how to be cheeky and how to get around things. So one thing I love about Edpuzzle is, of course, at the very bottom, you'll see like the open circles where the questions will be. The students cannot just jump to the questions. They actually have to watch the video. And I had a couple students write me at the beginning. They're like, well, I can't just move to the next question. I'm like, yeah, because you're supposed to watch the video. But I just want to move to the question. I'm like, yeah, this is the whole point why we're using Edpuzzle. But then I also like it because if they're on question 3 and they don't know the answer, they can say rewatch and it doesn't start the video back over. It just moves back to where question 2 was in that small snippet. And they can rewatch that as many times as they need to get that answer. So I love the fact that while I can differentiate the questions, Edpuzzle is already differentiating how many times they're exposed to the content, the speed that they're exposed to it, and well as well. Yes, and the video stops if they leave a tab. Oh, it's such a great thing. But one of the other ways that I really worked when I was in a hybrid model, when I had some students in the class and other students out, was I used a lot of Flipgrid, where I would pose questions online and students would respond, but you couldn't respond to me. You just had to respond to the last person that posted. So everyone had to go back and respond to the previous person, and that previous person had to leave one more question or one more I wonder statements. And so to answer it, they either had to do their own research or they already had to know, or they had to go, yeah, I really don't know. I wonder where we could look and find this. And so I use this for both my in-person students and my virtual students because my virtual students were very lonely. And I didn't want it to feel like we had 2 different classroom environments. They miss their friends. I wanted them to interact with their friends. And even my students that were in class, let's be honest, they couldn't move around. They were like glued to their chair the whole time. It was quite boring. So even that gave them the opportunity to socialize in an educational standpoint. And then I could always jump in and give other feedback as well. So I love Flipgrid for that point. It brought us all back together.
Emily or Rob, can you speak to the tools, techniques, and strategies we can employ to create an interactive and engaged student experience within video?
I would advocate for a tool that is a bit old school called paper and a pen, if anyone can remember what those are. You know, I taught high school and I was shocked by the fact that students really didn't know how to, you know, how to take notes. And I think someone once said students won't acquire skills until we require them. And so, you know, they had gotten to high school without learning to take notes. And if we didn't teach them to take notes, they would have perhaps gone, you know, to university without taking notes, or to a job without knowing how to take notes. And so I think it's a good practice when you have a video to think, what are students going to be doing in addition to perhaps Edpuzzle questions? I love Edpuzzle, by the way, but I think Christina has given an excellent description of that. You know, I think I think there are different approaches to this. I kind of started off with like a pretty, a pretty scaffolded or structured guided notes that was almost fill in the blank for students. And then over the course of the year, I might move away from that and say by the end of the year, or by the end of the month, whatever, I would expect you to be taking your notes on a blank sheet of paper, because that's a good challenge for students to figure that out. Also, I think for differentiation, it's nice to have a pretty, scaffolded set of notes that some students can use. And for other students, it's a challenge. I want you to see if you can take these on a blank piece of paper. One other approach that I know some teachers use is they'll just print out a copy of lesson slides and say, here's your notes template, like write down things you notice. Or if they're able to write on the screen of an instructional video, perhaps using a tablet, that isn't necessary, but it's nice. The student can write down what the teacher writes down. So I think it's engaging. I think it builds a good skill. And I think if I got to the end of the year and my students had a decent sense of how to take their own notes, then I had probably taught them something more important than math, quite frankly.
Oh, I love that. Something more important than math. What a profound statement, right?
Well, if you teach high school math, there's a lot of things, more important than I mean, I don't want to get into that. I love math.
I think that's a whole nother fabulous conversation.
Although
right?
not all of Algebra 2 standards. But anyways, yes. But I think, for me, if I have to do something around the house, I'm not going to sign up for the local, community college course in home maintenance. I'm going to go on YouTube and figure out how to do it. So actually, if we teach students to learn from a video, we're teaching something that is going to serve them for the rest of their lives.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I would just add very briefly, when I implemented videos in my flipped classroom, I would create very simple instructional videos that were no more than 3 to 5 minutes in length. There'd be multiple parts that I might give on different days, or that I might give in one day. I might say there's 3 videos, they're all 3 minutes and 30 seconds each. But what I would do, to Rob's point around the power of pencil and paper, is I would say on a piece of scrap paper, I don't care if it's recycled, it does not have to be beautiful, it just needs to be written. I would say in the video, pause, reflect on this question. If you know the answer, continue on. If not, stop here and we'll discuss this tomorrow. And that created this almost responsive, differentiated approach. And those written responses would be the entrance tickets to my classroom. Students would need to show me. And if they did not do it, they wouldn't come in. I would send them probably to the library or somewhere else to do their preparation work, to have their entrance ticket. This was a rather flexible learning environment where this could happen, and then come in prepared, because the classroom was not a space for them to be lectured at. It was a space for them to work and to collaborate. Emily, what would you add around engagement and interaction?
Yeah, I would definitely echo the notes piece. And I think you can do really developmentally appropriate approaches to guided notes. I know when I was doing my 6th graders, it looked really different than my 8th graders, which I'm sure looks really different than high school students. A lot of times on my slides, I would actually have a pop-up that pauses the video automatically. And on my slide, I would have like a model notes. You can make your notes look like mine, so it's like super scaffolded. So I would definitely echo that. I think it's a great way to engage. I work with a lot of educators who do really fun interrupting things, like, you get to this question, stand up and clap your hands 3 times, or like really funny, like making your classroom really engaging in that way. And kids are like, what's going on? I want to get to that lesson, and do fun things like that. So that's just like a silly way to engage. A lot of educators I work with also love Nearpod. There's so many tools in Nearpod to make your videos interactive. You can upload the whole video or a portion of a video, all kinds of different questions. It's a great tool. Something I did when I didn't have a very long video, like a 2 or 3 minute shorty, I would post it to Google Classroom and make it a question, as like an attachment to a question. And then the children would have to respond in some kind of summarizing strategy, maybe a 3, 2, 1, or I used to think, but now I think. And they would have to post, and they would have to respond to at least 2 classmates. So And that way they were sort of analyzing the video and sharing their thoughts about the video with each other. So even if we weren't in class together, they were interacting about a common experience as a group. So those are just some additional ideas. I think the misnomer about instructional videos is it's very isolating and not interactive at all. And I'm glad that we're talking so much about this, because I think there's so much power and interactivity in them. And it's cool to hear everybody's thoughts.
I want to just share one more way that I really interact with my students. I create virtual escape rooms where there are small videos within that, or maybe there's worksheets in it. And like, it's literally a whole lesson piled into one. And I tell them, work by yourself or work with a friend, work with a group, collaborate. I don't care. At the end of the day, if they're collaborating, they're going to have the opportunity to share their ideas, bounce it off, try. And of course, they have to get codes right to move to the next spot, to move to the next area. And so I love the fact that those higher level learners are like, no, I'll do it by myself. Versus others are like, no, let's get a group of 5 or 6 together. And then I haven't even told them like who you're going to work with or who you don't want to work with. And it builds a much bigger community, where I've had some where the entire class just worked together and they were able to come out with it. Sure, Claudette, I will share. I have a physics one that I created for another teacher. I'll be happy to share that resource with you as well. But I love virtual escape rooms because there's so many things you can do with it, and kids are playing without realizing that they're learning.
Can you just give us an elevator pitch description of what in the world is a virtual escape room? Because I think I know, and I've seen one, but I think there may be viewers who say, they don't even understand what that is at all.
Sure. So a virtual escape room is where I tell the students where to start, and usually it's in a 360-degree picture where they can take their mouse and they can scroll. They can look 100% around. They can look all the way up, and then they can look all the way down in this virtual room. And then I tell them to start at the home button. So they'll look around for a little home icon. They'll click on it. And I do everything in a rhyming scheme. And what I do for my kids is I bold some of the keywords, which some of them still miss that, but I bold some of the keywords to kind of give them where to look next. And then, for example, if I'm saying roses are red, violets are blue, look up at the sky, you'll see number 2. And so they'll look up in the sky, they'll find a number 2, and they'll click on that spot next. And then there'll either be a video of me, or there'll be a worksheet, and it'll be another rhyming and poem that they'll have to find. And then they'll find a key or a lock, and they have to use a code that they find to unlock it. And if they get it right, they keep moving on. Did that work?
I mean, it does. I've done it. I just have to tell everyone, I have done one of these. That Christina, one of these virtual escape rooms, Christina, that you created. And I remember my threshold for frustration was rather high because of how much fun I was having. I got completely lost. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even get halfway done in the time that we had, but I had a blast trying it. And I think that's sort of what we need to look at here, is not just how to give content effectively, and not just how to make sure students understand and demonstrate their understanding, but to Christina's point, how to have them have fun. And to Emily's point, how to create opportunities for them to be with their peers and to see one another. I think this community building and this this focus on fun, they are points that cannot be ignored when we are working in the field of education. I would like to sort of present a couple of concrete ideas for student engagement, some best practices and considerations. First of all, that when we are just looking at videos, not necessarily escape rooms or any particular app or tool, just your simple video that you might create with your phone or with some very simple editing software, you want to incorporate opportunities for response and reflection. And you've heard in the brief conversation that we've had many ways to integrate technology to do that. But also, Rob made the fabulous point that a pen and a piece of paper is a useful tool. And so we want to provide guiding questions, discussion prompts, and checks for understanding as we empower our students to respond to us. And second, I'd like to offer one more point, and then I'm going to pass this back to the panelists, because I know they're going to have a lot to say about this. But we can also use videos as a tool for students to demonstrate their understanding, not just to have them demonstrate their understanding to our videos, but in fact, have them create their own, and do so using a myriad of tools that we have already discussed, and those which are as simple as a computer with a camera, or a cell phone, or an iPad, something very simple. And as we are engaging students in the creation of their own videos, I'd like to offer sort of 3 best practices again. Number 1, as I said before, good questions, compelling tasks. We have to ask them something that matters to them. Number 2, creative freedom within the bounds of appropriate behavior. We want to promote student agency and allow them to create videos that are reflective of who they are. And then finally, cooperative and collaborative opportunities whereby students can come together. So with those ideas, I'd love to push this back out to Rob, Emily, Christina. What are your thoughts around videos that students can create, that they can use to demonstrate their understanding and to collaborate and to show their own agency in the learning process?
Well, I'll jump in, but Christina, I want to hear more about how you use Flipgrid. I love Flipgrid. I loved it as a teacher. I love it for working with adults even. It's a really nice tool, and it's super low lift in terms of technology. Just click a button. One of my favorite things to have children do using Flipgrid is to do a screencast around some kind of I'm going to think aloud. Like, let me walk you through, Miss Dia, my introduction to my essay. And this is what I was trying to go for. And here's some moves that I made. And like 30 seconds, they're giving me so much more information about what was happening in their head as they wrote that introduction than I could get just by reading it. So I love that sort of screencast think aloud strategy. Or a tour. A lot of times with our middle school students, we would have them do video tours of their learning management system, especially around their assignment completion, just to like foster some self-reflection and to say like, oh, look at how I'm managing my time, or like, oh gosh, I'm a little bit behind pace in lots of my classes, and like, I wonder what that's about. So just like a little SEL check-in can also be effective in terms of a screencast. I love a screencast.
Can I just ask really quick, Emily, for those of us who may not know what you mean when you say screencast, what do you mean?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes. So just like you're recording on top of whatever you're looking at on your screen. So it's just a screen recording, like Screencastify is a Screencast-O-Matic is one. There are lots of them out there. But like if I'm a kid and I have my Google Classroom missing assignments open, I can make a short video that says, oh, hey, look, I've got 10 missing assignments. I wonder what that's about. And then sort of think aloud what's going on there. And I can scroll through and show my teacher like all those 10 things.
Right. So there are 2 websites that Emily has briefly mentioned, Screencastify and Screencast-O-Matic. Maybe Emily, you could type those in, or I could get some links and throw them into the chat space. I think that they are fabulous tools, mostly free, and if there are paid options, you don't have to use them. We use them all over the Teach Now program. Teachers are always doing metacognitive reflection, analyses, collaborative activities using Screencastify and Screencast-O-Matic. But let me just say, you Google screen capture recording and 150,000 options are going to come up for you, and most of them are fine. You just want to try and find something that'll work for you. As Nick has put, Capto is great for Macs. Thanks, Nick.
One thing I did for my kiddos, when as a science teacher, I decided to, about a month after COVID started, we started doing lab experiments again. But it was rethought about in a whole nother way, where there was no materials that I assigned them. We started looking at water purification, and we started looking at building a compost. And so I gave them examples of water purifications and what it consisted of the different soil and the charcoal and everything. But my requirement to them was they were not allowed to buy anything. So they kind of had to scavenge around and just pull out items that they could find and see if it worked and what didn't work. And so the one way I held them accountable was I gave them that option to record you putting it together for me and tell me why you're putting things together. Like walk me through as though I'm with you. Some of my students were really shy and they didn't want to be in front of the camera. So my other option was, okay, we'll take a couple snap photos and then walk me through using Anchor FM, which is a simple podcast that they could make. And it kept them off screen. So for some of my students that they didn't feel comfortable with where they lived or they were embarrassed at their environment, they could still be actively engaged and participating. But instead, they didn't have to be actually in the video for themselves. Like they would take a picture, just send it to me privately, and then explain it to the class through a podcast. So I found a way to really help meet their needs. So I didn't put them on the spot. I didn't make them embarrassed. And, home life is very personal for some people. And so I want to keep that personal space for them as well.
One thing I would say when we talk about videos is there's always a tension between, and for students the same, creating your own versus finding ones that exist. One assignment that I think it's great to have students create their own videos. I think it's great for teachers to create their own videos. That's why I'm here. But I do think there are situations in which finding other videos can be good. One assignment I've given students is find the best video you can on X topic. And I think it's a good exercise actually for students to do. They're not creating it, but it's a video related assignment. So it's a little tangent, but then the student might have to watch a couple videos and try to think, okay, what's actually a good explanation? Is it the visuals? Is it, the students would often say to me like, well, I don't like the way your video is. I say, okay, go find a better one. I don't care. I just want you to learn this. And then maybe they think, well, what makes a good video? And so maybe you can have students create a video. I think it's great. Maybe you could say, your homework is to find a good video on this topic. And if they have to watch 6 videos to find the best one, they're probably going to learn something along the way.
I think, Rob, the same goes for us as teachers. We do not always have to create the videos we use in class. And YouTube is a wonderful tool to put us in touch with teachers and content creators who make their content readily and freely accessible to us around the world. I gave up. I'm going to be very honest. I stopped creating content videos for my classes simply because I could not keep up with some of the fabulous things that I found presenting the same content in a much more engaging way. But that does not mean I stopped creating videos. What I did instead was I created highly personalized, engaging conversations with my students through video. For instance, if I were going to be absent because I was sick, or because even if I was sick, but if I had a professional development or whatnot, I would pre-record an introduction to my lesson and have that ready for the students to review in the physical classroom. The same goes in the virtual classroom. When I taught 500 students in a District of Columbia Public Schools education campus as a Spanish teacher, I did not want to sing my introductory song one more time. I was over it. I could not do it anymore. So in the morning, I got my cup of coffee and I sat and I gave like a Grammy award-winning performance. And that would be played on my smart screen as soon as they would come in. And I would be able to engage with students individually, help people get in the room, take attendance. And my early childhood students would sing with me on the smart screen, not me over in the corner. Or hilariously, you can tickle a young student by doing this. I would interact with myself. So I would make a joke or ask Profe Pearson a question and then respond in my live classroom to the pre-recorded question. So all sorts of things that you don't have to create the best content. What you can do is create the most personalized and responsive content for your learners and do so in very reasonable, easy ways. For me, it was just photo booth with my MacBook, and it took me one take to get that together, and I was done. It was ready to just integrate directly into my slide deck and be ready for my class. So what I'd like to do is transition now to our final question. But before I do that, I'd like to thank Emily and Rob for doing something very, very kind for us. And this is above and beyond their participation. They are the, as I mentioned, representatives of the Modern Classrooms Project. And the Modern Classrooms Project empowers educators to build classrooms that respond to every student's need through its free online course. They have trained 35,000 teachers in 150 countries with this self-paced, mastery-based educational and instructional model. And they have graciously created a Moreland University specific module on how to make instructional videos. And this is only available to people who are enrolled in the professional development in 1 week from today. When you sign up for that course, you will then be linked directly to their website and you will go through their self-paced course. Then you'll come back to Moreland, create your own video and get feedback from one of our expert faculty members, one of whom is with us today. Christina Breimer will be one of the faculty members. So I, in fact, pulled together the best people for this webinar to showcase not only the expertise, but also the dedication and the engagement that you're going to experience. We can talk to you for hours about how to make videos, but until you make them, until you get your hands dirty, you will not know what you need and what you need to know, which is why taking a course with us for no cost is a great way to not only practice, but get feedback from your instructor and from the other people enrolled. I'll make one last statement, which is that this is the most highly enrolled professional development we've had in a long time. And so if you're interested, it's important that you either are enrolled today, and I know many of you are, but if not, that you get enrolled quickly because we are running out of space in our cohort and I don't want to send hundreds and hundreds of people over to Emily and Rob in this course. So I want to make sure we have a good solid group of a couple hundred to do this learning experience. So if you're interested in learning more, make sure that you go over to moreland.edu/professional-development. It is in the chat space. You complete your application, you get yourself in a cohort, and you have the opportunity to experience Modern Classrooms, self-paced material, and then our platform and our fabulous instructional staff, including Christina, to get feedback and guidance. There will be another virtual class next week at either 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. on February 15th. And I do hope to see many of you there and to watch many of your instructional videos. Christina will tell you that I always message her and I say, send me the best candidate submissions that you've got. And we send those all over the place with your permission, of course. So you never know where your instructional video might end up. Last question before we log off. We need to simplify this process. We cannot be spending hours. And so the last question in the last 6 minutes of our discussion today, how can teachers simplify the video creation process? What platforms, apps, or other tools do you recommend for video creation?
I would say, I think you've said it, Joey, just to keep it simple. One tool we've been recommending more often is to use Zoom. Like, it doesn't seem like a fancy ed tech tool, but screen share on Zoom. You can be the only person in the meeting, hit the record button, and there you go. You have a video. So I guess I would give my last word similar to my first word, which is just do it. And if it seems like it's working for your students and you've done it in a simple way, and then you'll have motivation to get better. And I guess I'll say one other thing, which is that the first video you make, it's going to take you a long time. You're going to hate it. It's okay. It's part of the process. You're going to get better, and you just have to believe in it. It will happen.
Well, and then one day, many years later, you'll look back at yourself singing at a camera at 6:30 in the morning with a cup of coffee and think, my goodness, what was I thinking, right? Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, but then and you have the video, you can use it again. So never repeat a lesson again so anyways, that's all I got.
Emily, what would you share about simplifying this process for us?
leverage your cell phone, especially if you're feeling nervous. Everybody knows how to use their cell phone video. Just hold it up and try it. You know, it can be a very mini video. It doesn't be a micro lesson. It doesn't have to be a long thing. So that's how I kind of started playing, was like similar to you, like an introduction kind of mini message to my students, and I had them respond to it. I am a big fan of Screencastify. I find it very intuitive to use. But that's just for me. I was very scared of instructional videos when I started making them. I have very low tech skills. And so I was keen to find tools that felt very simple. It doesn't have to be super complex. And I also am a fan of Zoom. So I echo Rob on that one for sure.
Yeah, honestly, I do all my videos on Zoom. I mean, I teach with Moreland on Zoom. It's just, I'm second nature to it, and you don't need an official account to create these videos. Use a free one. You're not doing a 30+ minute video. And so you do your quick video, you get in, you get out, it downloads. Make sure you download it to your computer, not your cloud. I lost several videos, couldn't find where my cloud went, don't know where my cloud is. But that is what I've learned, is I download it directly to my desktop and it's right there. I upload it and I'm done. Takes all of like 20 seconds after it downloads and after you close out of Zoom. And if you're new to Zoom, you don't just hit stop. You actually have to completely get out of Zoom for it to download. I was sitting around for like a couple hours the first time going, where is it? But yeah, so that's the key, is you actually have to get complete out of Zoom for it to download. So any mistakes, I promise you I've already made them at least 2 or 3 times before I remember what the right answer is. So it's okay.
Any final thoughts from Emily, Rob, or Christina? I think I did an okay. Oh, go ahead, Emily.
I was just going to say, you can do it. We believe in you. I like, jump in. You're going to be great.
I would say, you know, in 2 years, you're going to be a panelist on a webinar explaining to other teachers how to do this. And I think, like, you know, I think we're still at those of us on this webinar are still at the forefront of something that can really change how teaching and learning happens. And so, you know, learn how to do it, share it with someone else. And that's my vision of how things are going to change in the country and world, is teachers doing something that works and sharing it with other teachers. And so I hope it works for you and that you'll share it.
Well, on that note, and on behalf of Moreland University and the Modern Classrooms Project, I would like to thank you for being with us today for this Moreland Meet on strategies and tools to create instructional videos. Thank you for spending the time, those of you who are with us in person and those of you who are watching after the fact, engaging in this conversation. And we do hope that you will pick up your cell phone, pick up your computer, and get started with your very own instructional videos. It's been wonderful being with you, and I wish you all the best. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.